brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys.
Hey there, and welcome to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. It's good old boy Mike. And I thought I'd join you for a minute and let you know about a lot of great things that are going on here at Sips, Suds, and Smokes, where everything good in life is worth discussing. Hey, on today's episode, we're actually going to have a wonderful sip segment on Italian wines. It's a great overview of the Corvina grape. It's a good one-on-one episode helping you understand all of the various aspects of being able to work with a wonderful varietal grape and how Italian winemakers make really wonderful wine throughout the entire course of the life of that grape as well. We have two new hosts that are joining us for this episode, and it's really great that they were able to join us for these episodes. I hope they'll come back and join us once again. A couple other things that are happening here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes you definitely should not miss. Hey, if you haven't jumped on Facebook lately and checked out our Facebook page, you definitely should do that. We have a lot of great stuff on there, but right now we have a really great contest that's going on. It's called the Magical T-Shirt Contest. We're finally getting into producing some of our own swag that guys can pick up about all the real great stuff here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes, t-shirts and hats and all and whatnot. But one of the things that we're introducing is something called the Magical T-Shirt. So we have a contest giving these away for the next 6 weeks, and we have one lucky winner that's actually going to get to join us at GABF. We'll be at that festival, covering that entire beer festival in Colorado, and you have a chance to join us on one evening for that particular festival. So why are they so magical, you might ask?
Abracadabra!
Well, if one of our co-hosts, and we have a bunch of them scattered all over the U.S., actually catches you wearing one of our magical t-shirts at a bar, at a restaurant, at your favorite wine bar, cigar bar, a lot of other places, guess what? They can walk up and actually just pick up the tab for you right there.
And for my next trick, soaring the lady in half.
I can't think of anything more magical than free beer or wine or free cigars, so there's really quite an interesting moment where you can pick up a magical t-shirt and brag to all your friends that you got one here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes.
Pick a card, any card.
All right. So if you haven't checked us out on Twitter, there's a lot of good hints about where our hosts are at. We always post really great tasting notes out there on Twitter, and you can check those out anytime at Sips, Suds, Smoke is our Twitter handle. With that, thanks for joining us today, and I'll let you enjoy this Sips episode about Italian wine. Keep sipping.
And now it's sippin' time.
Hello and welcome to another Sips, Suds, and Smokes. This is a sip segment. I'm one of your co-hosts today, good old boy Mike. Joining me for this show today are good old boy Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Viviana.
Hi.
And Billie Joyce.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so this is Sips segment is all about Italian wine, and I'm so pleased to have all three of you here to chat about Italian wines. We're going to spend a little bit of time, give our listeners a little bit of background, on Italian wine, and I know that both of you really love Italian wine. I love Italian wine, but it's a very different, it's a difficult wine, I think, for consumers to navigate. And so I don't know that I would call this an Italian 101 show, but I think we'll cover a lot of good material that I think will help a lot of people embrace Italian wine that maybe have not had a chance to taste it in the past. All right, so here we go, Ryan. I'm thinking that what we need to play behind this is, some Italian opera like the Barber of Seville to keep everybody awake because we're chatting about all this. But if we get some Pavarotti rocking with Verde, that might keep everybody bopping along. So, Italia, the wonders of the world wrapped in great food, people, and wine.
Italia, le meraviglie del mondo avvolte in ottimo cibo, persone e vino.
She says it so much better and with passion that I would have just completely butchered that, so I'm so glad. So Italian wine. I've been fortunate to go to lots of parts of Italy And drinking wine in country is very different. There are many good table wines, and table wine is Vini Tabla.
Fini da tavola.
I was close. Sorta.
It's okay.
So it's really not unusual even to get what I would consider a super Tuscan Vini in Florence that would blow the socks off, some vintage wines that I have had even here in the States. But grapes are grapes, and sometimes an aged product with crappy grapes is not as even good as less aged wines with really good grapes. It's also enough Italian to be dangerous for me while I'm in country. So I know that when I'm walking around, there's like a couple of things that I know, and I don't pass by like an espresso shop without walking in and say Cafe Due very quickly. And that's about it. I need to get enough caffeine to move me through the day, and that's one of the things I really liked about the Italian style is it seems like that I was constantly having wine and caffeine all day long, while enjoying a lot of really great food at the same time. So Italy is home to some of the oldest wine-producing regions in the world, and Italian wines are renowned worldwide both for the quality and their broad quality. Italian shares with France the title of the largest wine producer in the world, and its contribution, about 50 hectoliters, representing about a third of the world production. I started thinking about that, and I know that a third of my wine consumption is not from Italy. It's actually with some other countries. So I'm really glad we're coming back around to this. I must be missing the boat somewhere along the way. If there's a third of the overall world is drinking Italian wine, this is probably a good show for people to go, I don't think that half my wine needs to be from, say, California or Australia. There's a lot of really great Italian wine. Italian wine is exported around the world and also extremely popular in Italy. Italians rank 5th in the world of wine consumption, list by volume of 42 liters per capita. And I thought about that. I'm like, that's a liter of wine about every week. So they probably take a few holidays off, but
You might have to check your data.
I know.
It might be a little more than that.
That's what exactly I was thinking as well, Viviana. I'm like, that's low, man. I don't think you know the same Italians that I know. So this is like a liter a day. Like it's pretty close. And I think with a lot of the way that table wines are consumed in country, I would definitely say that that number should be higher. I agree. So grapes are grown in almost every region of the country, and there are more than 1 million vineyards under cultivation. In the U.S., we see a lot of what I would consider two designations available. There is the Vina Varietal, which is always known as what I call the Italian grab bag wines, but you guys probably have a different way of describing that designation of, those varietals that you see a lot for Italian wines here in the U.S.
I think that today actually the U.S. is getting a lot of the entry-level wines, but a lot of wines that are from higher standards and better producers. Definitely, I think the American market in general has been evolving.
Yeah.
And it's been appreciating, different things.
And I think
more and more. Just there are things that definitely cannot be exported for various reasons.
Well, and I think it's part of, and I think that's one of the reasons why Italian wines are a little difficult for U.S. consumers is you have a lot of blending that's going on, and I think with some wine consumers are used to very consistent grapes from certain regions, and when you have more international grape varietals that are being introduced into what I would consider traditional Italian blends, it creates some confusion, within, I think, the average, wine consumer. And so I think that's what a lot of people that I see them approaching Italian wines for the first time, and I always love when they turn to me and they're like, well, Mike, what's in the bottle? And I go, I don't know. I'm like, let's open it up and taste it. I'll probably get to that point, of understanding what's in the bottle at that point. And I think it's just the style of winemaking and blending is really has a broad range of variability. So there's another classification of wine, and I enjoyed our conversation about this, which was DOP and DOC, which is the protected designation of origin, or of the, I forget what the C is. It's not country.
C
is cultivation
control.
or control. That's it. I know it's close. So at that point in time, what does that mean in Italy when you have DOP or DOC designation?
Well, first of all, let's not confuse DOC and DOP. DOP is the new classification that the European Union has decided to expand to wine. It's a classification that is used for agricultural products in general. So the standards appellation in Italy so far have been primarily three, not considering the Vino da Tavola. You have had IGT, which is indication geographic typical. So wine needs to come from a specific area. That's all IGT really means. And IGT has been converted pretty much into IGP. So it's P stays for protected. So geographic indication is a protected geographic indication. And then the DOC and DOCGs have kind of been combined into DOP. So DOC is denomination of controlled origin, and that additional G is guaranteed, where you actually have standards that winemakers have to follow, rules really, big thick book of regulations that every winemaker has to follow to be able to put that particular name on the bottle. So if it's a Chianti, and let's say it's a Chianti Classico, it has to be coming from a particular area, the classical designated area. It has to have a certain number of percentages of grapes, has to have a certain aging requirements, and all of these are things that are supposedly going to protect the consumer, because what is in that bottle, what is sold, it's actually what is in that bottle.
So there are food laws that are like this in a broad range of countries that cover not only wine, but I know we were talking a little bit about cheese, before I get on the mics here. And these are a combination of labeling laws as well as production requirements that most of the vendors have to satisfy. I think one of the most interesting things, it was an eye-opener for me, is that under these designations, it actually extends into elements of packaging. And we were talking about, some of this is actually brought in, specifically the designation of the type of cork.
Yes, I was talking to one of my Brunello producers, and I know that within the Rosso di Montalcino regulation, for example, you're not allowed to use a screw cap for Rosso di Montalcino, and whatever gets into a box, for example, it's usually a declassified wine. It's going to be an IGT wine. You're not really allowed. I don't know the rules and regulations for every single DOC or DOCG, but in most cases you're not allowed to put any of those products in boxes.
Well, I think this is the, I don't know if this is the first I've heard or the only country I'm aware of where there are regulations that actually extend into packaging elements, associated with the wine. And I'm a screw top fan, so at the end of the day, for me, it's about what's in the bottle and protecting what's in the bottle. And I think always when you have an organic product that is coming in contact with food, that's always that can be very difficult to manage, and especially over time. And for those of us, and I age wine, for those people that are cellaring wine, constantly keeping that cork wet is definitely in certain humidity characteristics, and most importantly, not introducing any air in contact with that food product is, I spend an enormous amount of time, money, and energy just to do that. And so it's rather interesting that you have a food regulation that in some ways, I won't say compromises the food product, but they're actually forcing the consumer to say, game on, you have to keep track of what the cork is doing in this case, to enjoy the wine. Billie, you have any thoughts about, what your when you think about food packaging, and importantly wine packaging, with the Italian designation here?
Well, the one thing about cork and screw cap is great for wine that is not going to be aged for certain, and there's nothing wrong with the screw cap. as far as a cork goes, now there's more and more ways of processing cork that is producing a lot less corked bottles, which is a fault, not the fact that it's corked, but that it has this disease called cork taint, basically. And when it comes to what they're doing there, the idea of aging, the one thing we don't really know is how well things are going to age if they're not in a cork. Because the cork does allow some oxygen in, and part of the aging process, especially for thicker skinned, depending on how the Brunello, for example, would be produced. I mean, a lot of people are producing things that can drink now because we are this consumer driven. We want to drink now. We don't want to wait that 10 years to drink that bottle of wine. We want to drink it now. So I just think that the aging process, you don't really know what's going to happen when it's in a screw cap and you lay that down for 20, 25 years because no oxygen gets in it.
True.
And there is something called reduction that happens.
Yeah.
And it can change the wine because there's a whole bunch of biological chemical processes that are going on in that bottle. Mm-hmm. And without the air coming in through the cork, it's really hard to know. In 100 years, we'll have a way better idea of what was better to do for wines that are aging.
So, Ryan, how about it for you? Are you a cork guy, a cap guy, or a box guy?
For me, it really doesn't matter. There's a product
It's
out
all
there.
about the grape.
It's all about the grape. It's all about
It's all about the juice.
what you're doing,
juice.
who you're doing it with, where you're going.
Yeah.
I think there's a time and a place for everything. And like you said, if you're going to put a screw cap on a Brunello, I probably wouldn't be a fan of it, but I'm not going to be against it either. I mean, I'm open to it. Why not?
Though I haven't seen any on higher.
No,
I haven't seen any Bordeaux's that are with screw
And some
cap.
of that I think
But I
has
have
to
had
do with.
Bordeaux with synthetic caps.
Yes,
You know,
with
true,
synthetic.
yeah.
Now is that? Do you know if that's?
I don't think with Brunello it's allowed the synthetic cap.
I can't remember. There are so
either.
many rules and regulations. Yeah.
I do think that some of that has also to do with tradition and maintaining the way things are traditionally done. It has to do with talking about other things related to tradition. Few months ago, there was a consortium in Brunello that was asking for Rosso di Montalcino to become a blend, not just 100% Sangiovese. And the purists have always said, well, why, if we are doing this just to offset the possibility of bad vintages, that's why we declassify things, right? So you always have the purists and the traditional school towards those that want to change things.
Well, that's a good segue that brings me around to, I think, a very confusing topic for many, which is Super Tuscans. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the revolt of the Italian winemakers, where they said, hey, listen, I think we can produce really great wine, and you don't have to designate it at all. You guys go do your thing. We're going to do ours. We're going to declare that as long as it's from Tuscany and we're blending some stuff in this region, we're good to go. So there's definitely a lot of really great wine that has been introduced, from Tuscany, and I really thought this was a very interesting movement from these a number of vineyards that kind of joined this process. But what do you think that's done to the average consumer? Do you think that it's diluted, like the DOC or DOG, designation, or it's brought just a lot of really great wine to the market that may have been stifled away?
For a lot of the producers I work with, because they are smaller winemakers, and I think a lot of them consider themselves artists, the IGT designation does two different things. Allows them to either bring in some good quality, inexpensive products that are declassified simply to get the market introduced to certain things. And at the same time, it allows their artistic vein to come into play and play around with things, where they are aging something a different way than it's supposed to be aged, to see the results and to just, create their own little things, So again, two different options right there with.
Well, and the other thing I just like is the IGP, even though it is not DOC, they still do have set yields, and there are still set rules as far as the quality. And there's a tasting panel that tastes things for. In order to be IGP, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to declare this IGP," when it's really Vino di Tavola. So that being said, it's not as strict by any means as the other, but still you're getting a quality, still a level of quality.
Well, I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I think with all this very colorful background, I mean, my advice and my very strong advice to anybody buying Italian wine is, hey, try it before you buy it if you can. And I think that's true with a lot of wines, but it seems like every time, I've gone out and I've bought wine just purely based on designation or, region or something else. I can't say I've been disappointed ever, but I feel like I'm missing out on definitely a super Tuscan market, as well as a lot of really great blends that are available there. So it's very difficult to buy on label, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, for Italian wines. And I think that try it before you buy it if you can, but don't be afraid to certainly buy within and understand these points of designation as well. All right, so we've maybe we should shift the beat to some domestic Italian variety, but first off, I think we need the master of all Italian crooners to introduce to this. Would be Mr. Dean Martin before we get on with wine.
Prego, when you kiss her goodnight.
All right, so definitely on to the wines that we have to introduce. Viviana, thank you so much for bringing these wines for us to enjoy. And I know that you actually know all of these winemakers and wine producers fairly well, is that right?
I know a lot of my producers on a first name basis.
All right, so what's our first wine up that we're going to chat about here today?
So actually the first three wines are strictly related one to the other. We are going to see the evolution of the Corvina grape in a bottle. The first wine that we see is 100% Corvina by Cantina Valpantena, and it's just a very fresh, light red from the Veneto region. We are within Valpolicella, and very often this wine is actually served with a little chill, and it's paired with fish from the Lake Garda. And I find this a very easy.
The only thing that's missing from this is good music in the background, some good Italian cheese. She makes this. I'm just like, we are not sitting here in Craft Brewed. She's like, hauled me back into a different part of Italy, as I guess she's going through this. So I'm swooning over this. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Viviana.
Oh, that's quite all right. So I find this to be a very easy introduction into Italian wines. It has everything that little wine should have. You've got the acidity, you've got a tiny little bit of tannins, you've got the fruit, and it's just an easy drink.
And it's affordable too.
And it's very affordable.
Maybe that's somebody calling saying, hey, you got some good Corvino today?
Yeah, we sure do, actually. We actually have that in stock at Craft Brewed.
So thank you for that introduction. Definitely the tasting notes I had around this were light. I thought that it was a blending wine is generally how I thought about this was, something, akin to Cab Franc. And I thought it was a good, fresh, daily vino to really go after. I like the fact that you designated it. It probably need to be served a little bit chilled, and actually when we tasted it, I did enjoy it being chilled. But I would really just say this was a good, solid, daily wine. I don't think this may be something that probably I would personally go after, but I think that there are definitely people that, if they were afraid of a big Super Tuscan or a Brunello or Barolo that might be very heavy, and they were thinking of a good, approachable Italian wine, this would definitely be something I would tell them to approach and think about. So my sips rating for this is going to be 2.
Well, isn't
nice,
that
but what
nice?
else do you have? Billie, have you had a chance to enjoy this, and what
Yes,
did you think about this one?
I have sold this wine in bottle and in box, and personally, I would say this is definitely a 5.
Wow.
Because you have a price.
Oh my goodness!
You have that price. That's what it means.
You have a price point. Things are worth what you're paying for, and if you are just sipping this wine, it's something light, fresh, and refreshing. I do think the chill thing is really important because it really brings out the cherry. It like lifts it, but also whatever you're going to eat with it, that's.
And I think that's one of the things I felt bad about is that I don't think that I've tasted enough Corvina basically as a varietal alone without any aging to have a really good point of reference. So I was just tasting the wine currently just as it stood without any, I think frame of reference. So it was a little difficult for me to say, well, this is great Corvina, this is bad Corvina. I was just saying, as it's being presented, kind of where it was. And again, we were tasting all these wines kind of in line. I'm like, well, I like the one that's aged versus the one that's not, but that was just a taste preference, not a point of, I think, really comparison. So I think that's great, and I'm sure you've tasted a lot of Corvina, and probably your rating is probably a whole lot more accurate than mine, from that regard. So
well, I don't know, but it's just most consumers do buy on what they like, and a lot of people, I teach a lot of classes, and people like the full-bodied wines.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that a lighter body wine is not a great wine. For, like I said, the price. This is a great price wine, and it's farmed well. It's it's a good
Ryan,
value.
what do you think of the Corvina?
For me, it's not my favorite style. It's not something that I would personally gravitate towards. But for what it is, I think stylistically it's very on point. I think it's very versatile. Like Viviana was saying, you can pair it with a lot of great food. You can have it chilled. You can have it anywhere, anytime you want. You don't have to decant this thing for 6 hours. You don't have to. There's not a lot of thought process that can go into this. You just drink and enjoy the wine. I'm going to give it a 4.
Wow, a 4. How about
because
that?
At that price point, how do you?
Pour me another.
Yeah, seriously, because if a lot of people find out about it, the whole cliche or whatever. Yep.
Since we're talking about my wines, can I give a 5 to each of them?
No, we're going to let you talk eloquently about each of these wines. So next up is the Ripasso in this, correct?
Correct. So we are missing, to me, these 3 wines are, you can consider them 3 brothers. You have the very young brother, and we're missing kind of one of the 2 middle children. We are going towards the older middle child.
All the middle children I know just get beat on unmercifully.
There's Billie saying I'm the middle child too.
I think this week was Middle Child Celebration Day or something. It was like a national holiday. Did you get like your free cheese and wine?
I missed it.
Okay. So this is an aged product, though, right?
Correct. Valpolicella Ripasso, by regulation, is usually aged at least 12 months in oak. And the word ripasso comes from the Italian verb ripassare, which means gone over. So while Valpolicella Classico, which, as I said, we didn't have, is usually a fresh red, like the Corvina, aged in stainless steel for kind of immediate consumption, the Ripasso is gone over the Amarone skins. So Amarone is done with dried grapes, so you start having a lot of more concentration of juice and a lot more body, riper fruit, definitely. And this is a wine that still won't break the bank. We are always under $20
and what
here
lake
too.
am I on, and what music is
It's
playing
still,
in the
we are in the same area. As I said, we are in Valpolicella still. So still Lake Garda, the beautiful Dolomites and the Alps in the background.
A good soprano operetta, right about now has to definitely chime in. The something a little bit of age and hitting those high notes. Has to play in with the cool breeze. Coming off the lake. With a Ripasso in my hand. That sounds pretty good.
But to me, for example, if you want to give a season to any wines, Corvina is more of like a spring-summer wine, and Valpolicella Ripasso makes me think of fall, and a lot of the food that comes around in the fall too. It's actually one of my very to-go wines at home.
All right, so my tasting notes around this Ripasso is, I liked how you described it, was a baby Amarone. And I wrote down currants. It just had a lot of deep, black cherries, coming around it. And I wrote down kind of round tannins around it. So to me, this is a great drinkable wine now. You don't have to lay it down, for 2 or 3 years. And it's interesting. I started, writing down. So the Corvina, as we talked about in a minute, a good daily wine. I think of this as a good weekly wine to go to. So my sips rating for this is going to be a 3. Interesting. What was that again? Billie, what did you think of the Ripasso?
Well, I'm going to say that, let's go with number 4.
A number 4. Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another. She's slipping you a 20 while we're chatting about this. Anyway.
Well, the ratings are they're different than the, scoring. So.
I know, that's right. So what captured you about the Ripasso to give it a 4?
Well, to me, and I've sold this wine as well, it's a great wine. And it's once again, everything is quality to value ratio. It drinks very well for its bang for buck. And it appeals to a lot of consumers. And when you are trying to educate or help consumers move on to something, this is something that they can access very easily. If they like California wine, it's still Italian, so it's still got that little earthiness to it and everything else too, but it's got the fruit and it's got the soft round tannins that you were talking about that appeal to most consumers that are looking for that style of wine. And it introduces them to another country.
I agree. And to an Italian
Fabulous
operetta.
wine. Yes.
Good old boy Ryan, what do you think of the Ripasso?
I really like the style. I like the oak influence on it. That gives it a little bit more depth and a little bit more character for me. So where I gave the Corvina, just a regular Corvina, a 3, I'm going to give this one a 4 because it has just that much more to it, and it doesn't cost that much more than the lower level of the Corvina.
Well, can we just hit the fast forward button? All right, next up is Amarone. All right, Viviana,
Exactly.
tell us all about this.
Before I get to the Amarone, the saleswoman in me wants to remind the people that the Corvina and the Valpolicella Ripasso are from Cantina Valpantena. So the Amarone is actually a product that we just added this particular brand in our portfolio. It's a Bardolino producer, one of the most famous Bardolino producers in the area. Bardolino is a small town on Lake Garda, and they just purchased some vineyards within the Valpolicella area, and this is their second vintage Amarone, as a matter of fact. We are outside the Classico area. And so again, evolution of the Corvina grape. Stylistically, Amarone is made with grapes that are left on the vines a little longer than regular harvesting time, and then when they are picked, originally they were laid in straw mats. That's the tradition of Amarone making, and the grapes are allowed to dry and kind of resinate. Today, a lot of winemakers naturally have the technology to be doing this in chambers that have controlled humidity and exposition to sun and all of that. That happens typically until January the following year, and then the juice is put in oak barrels for a period of a minimum 2 years, and then there is refinement in the bottle. So you've got a wine that is extremely concentrated in juice, and Amarone in Italian means the big bitter one, as a matter of fact.
Most definitely, and I think that's the general reaction most people have to Amarone is, wow, this is just, super amazing. So, I couldn't wait to get to the Amarone, because when the wine that I store and I drink is Amarone. I think that if people ask me straight up, what is it? And I go, good dead raisins. I think that I love the fact that you described a little bit about the winemaking technique, because it's very different than just, dumping the grapes, in the mash and crushing the grapes and cooking everything and away you go. And, this really takes what I call a lot of love, with a grape. And there are other wines like ice wines or dessert wines that you really have to decide within the harvest, the late aspects when the sugar is reaching its peak, to go after it. And so I think one of the difficult aspects about Amarone is yield characteristics with Amarone is usually very low, and part of it is having to have all these points of control and monitoring that you don't wind up with the same yield characteristics. So price points are a little difficult with Amarones for the average consumer. I would say most Amarones, this one's probably not, but $50, for a bottle of Amarone, I wouldn't say would be terribly unusual. I mean, I have some that are quite a bit more than that, but so for this Amarone though, my tasting notes are, I wrote down light raisins, and for some reason I wrote low terroir, and it's strange that I would actually be using elements of a French, designation, but it's just sometimes when Amarones that I have really contain an earthy quality that comes through, and you're actually tasting components of the soil in some Amarones, and it's either very what I call raisin forward or soil forward, and I like the good kind of balance about this particular Amarone. And if somebody was wanting to get an Amarone for the very first time, I would have no hesitation of reaching out and grabbing this and saying, this is a good place to start, because I think some of the other Amarones I have would just completely overwhelm people's palates, and they'd go, ooh, that tastes like raisins or figs or whatever, and I just don't think they would begin to have the measure of appreciation. So I think it's a really good Amarone, and good price point as well. We talked about this a little bit. This is swinging at around what retail?
45.
There you go. So, which is I think a really good price point for where this is. So my sips rating for the Amarone is going to be 3. Interesting. What was that again, Billie? What'd you think about this Amarone?
I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow, a 5 as well.
Oh my goodness! Yeah!
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed this. Definitely. What are some of the things that you like about this particular Amarone?
The balance.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what it is for me too.
And the ease and the price point is, like I said, that is always. I mean, when you're spending $100 on something that's worth 20, then that's not. Even if it tastes good,
I agree.
It's not good.
Good bang for buck. And there are definitely several Amarones that I've had that are twice that price point and half the wine easily. So. What else did raisin or no raisins with this?
There's definitely some raisin. Obviously, you can taste. Yes, most definitely.
Cool. Good old boy Ryan, what do you think about the Amarone here?
The Amarone for me is actually a little bit more restrained. I think we have just mentioned, and you said that some Amarones can just blow people away, including myself. I mean, there's just so much complexity there. How can you possibly get everything, every subtle nuance, every tasting note that you may want or expect out of a bottle? Sometimes I think that can get a little covered up or muted even because it's so big. With this one, you can get every last nuance out of the glass, and I think that's what makes it so good. It's not the biggest thing you've ever had, but it is still stylistically correct. And because of the price point, I'm going to give it a 4.
4. So let's keep the secret to ourselves, pour me another. So good bang for buck, good balanced wine, and a great Amarone. So thank you, Viviana, for definitely bringing this. A case can be delivered to the following address for Sip Suds and Smokes.
Can I say one little quick thing?
Yeah, sure, you bet.
The other thing is when you buy an Amarone, if you open it up, and we're talking about the restraint, decant.
Definitely.
Oh, great point. Yes.
Yeah.
Half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, and the wine will change.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's true for a lot of aged wines. And what is so I don't know this. What is the aging law for Amarone designation? Is it
36 months.
36 years. I'm sorry, 36 months.
24 in
I was going to say 5 years, so I was a couple years off. So,
But that's actually typical. People do actually age it for much longer than the actual.
Yeah.
I don't think I've touched one under 5 years ever. So,
But that's when it gets expensive.
true. Yeah. All right. One last wine up for us to chat about today. And of course, we couldn't talk about Italian wine without talking about a Chianti. So, Viviana, what'd you bring for us today to check out?
I brought a little Chianti that is from a denomination within the Chianti area that is kind of new. It falls under the Montespertoli area. Montespertoli acquired its own denomination in the early 2000s, and it's called SONNINO. This is a traditional style Chianti in the sense that there is a 10% of white grapes that are blended with the Sangiovese. And I find personally this Chianti to have all the characteristics of that a Chianti should have. It's not overly the term we use dry, so not overpowering tannins really, and has a very scented nose to me. A lot of violets come out of the nose. I found this wine extremely pleasant, even for those people that stereotypically won't drink Chianti.
Well, and I think that one of the things that, especially when I'm eating with friends that don't know wines really well, and this is what they tend to think of as a reference wine, for Italian wines, as Chianti. I think because it was used very heavily as a table wine, in a lot of the food industry here in the U.S. But there's actually two designations of Chianti: is Classico and Reserva.
Well, there are within the Chianti areas there are different areas of production. So Classico is one of the areas within Chianti. Reserva on an Italian label typically just means 1 extra year of aging.
There you go.
So with Brunello's, for example, a Brunello Reserva is usually aged 5 years instead of the regular 3 years of aging.
Well, I really enjoyed this Chianti Classico, and I thought it was very approachable. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good balance. That's what I call good pizza Chianti. And actually, I'd probably give it, good chicken, Chianti as well. Having this with a good fresh pasta, definitely right up there as well. So this would definitely be a Chianti that I would go back to. My sips rating for this is a 3.
Interesting.
Interesting. What was that again? Billie, what do you think about this Chianti Classico?
I'm going to give this a 4.
A 4. Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another.
Though I don't know if I could keep the secret.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, when you like something,
this is good. It has
Open
great balance.
another bottle.
Yes, there should be.
Should be another designation, right?
Open another bottle. But it's great balance, and once again, really super consumer friendly, because Chianti can be a really hard category for people to shop because there's so many different styles in that
and I think
region.
they're shopping labels, not always wines,
Or name.
True.
And many big names out there aren't worth shopping for.
especially in America.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, yes. Yeah.
Good old boy Ryan, what'd you think of the Chianti here?
I'm going to give it a 4 because to me...
Wow, a 4 as well. Let's keep the secret to
I
ourselves.
like their ratings a lot better.
You could slide the 20 over to me.
Hey, I'm waiting. I'm going to get a dinner invitation.
Well, I'm going to have to sit at the kids' table at Viviana's house. So.
Here's the thing, though. For me, a lot of Chianti can be bland. It's one-dimensional. It can be great flavor, but it's just one flavor. There's not that much complexity for some of those Chiantis in that $10 to $15 price range. This, to me, has a little bit more dimension to it. There's a fruit aspect that you don't get on a lot of Chiantis. There's spice. There's violets, as you brought up. There's just so many things that comes out in this wine that you don't typically get at that price range. So that's why I rated it that high. I mean, that's how I feel.
A lot of really great wines that we got to chat about today, and I'm glad we got to see the progression of the Corvina grape as well through our discussion today. As opposed to just talking about a lot of heavy blends, we actually got to see the element of a varietal and kind of the various stages, how it would be presented. So it was really great today. Thank you very much, Viviana, for bringing these wines. I look forward to more wine with both of you, hopefully in the future. Maybe I'll be more kind in the future to just slide more Amarone my way, right?
Sure. Let me call my boss.
Well, I'm so grateful for our discussion today, and I want to thank my hosts, good old boy Ryan.
Yeah, it was great having every one of y'all.
And Viviana.
Thank you, guys.
And Billie Joyce.
Thank you for having me.
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed our episode here and taken the time to share your comments with us on Facebook, on iTunes, on Twitter. You can catch our daily tasting notes. We probably have some contest of some kind in flight while this is going on, so definitely check that out. We'll probably be coming to your town or your festival in sometime in the near future. Most of all, I'm going to thank you for joining us today and ask you to keep on sipping.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.